Welcome to the Digital Marketing Mentor. I'm your host, Danny Gavin, and together with industry leaders and marketing experts, we'll explore the meeting point of mentorship and marketing. We'll discover how these connections have affected careers, marketing strategies, and lives. Now get ready to get human. This episode is sponsored by Audio Academy. If you've ever thought about breaking into digital marketing, but don't want crushing student loans, a job that drains you, or a career that doesn't align with your values, this might be your sign. Audio Academy teaches you how to build a real, sustainable career in digital marketing in a way that's practical, ethical, and actually enjoyable. No four-year degree required, no unpaid internships, just real skills you can use right away. Head to audioacademy.com/podcast and take $250 off Audio's Digital Fundamentals career course when you enter the code MENTOR at checkout. That's odeoacademy.com/podcast. And don't forget to enter code MENTOR to save $250 this spring. Welcome back to the Digital Marketing Mentor. Today's Office Hours episode is a little different. Rather than diving into a team single client case study, we're breaking down one of the most important overlooked pieces of SEO reporting, call tracking. Phone calls can make up as much as 50% of a business's total conversions, and yet most SEO reporting completely misses them. Today, we're going to talk about how call tracking works, why it changes everything, and how businesses can set it up the right way. Today, I'm pleased to bring back our SEO manager, Dorit Sasson, to provide some insightful color to this topic. Dorit was recently featured on another episode, number 102, which we'll link in the show notes. Our previous conversation got into the path that led her to specialize in SEO and gave perspective on the human side of search. Given the focus of today's episode, I'm thrilled to chat with Dorit again, as she has deep experience implementing call tracking setups across industries, including multi-location and high call volume clients like Heartlinks ABA. We're going to talk through the challenge, the strategy, real examples, what to watch out for, and the pro tips we've learned from auditing hundreds of accounts. Let's dive in. Dorit, thanks again for joining me today.
It's great to be here. Thanks for having me.
So I thought we could start by framing the concept of call tracking to give our audience some context around why this topic is so important. Let's define what is call tracking.
So the way I informally see it is it's another way to track where your traffic is coming from through different traffic sources using the actual call feature, right? You're making a phone call, you're tracking those phone calls. So that is the informal definition of what it is as far as application. It can be found on a Google business profile. It can be found in a Google ad. It can be found organically. And so all of those traffic sources lead to one type of a call tracking metric.
To fill in on the technical side of things, what that basically means is there are softwares out there like CallRail. At Optidge, we use call tracking metrics. And what you do is we put a little piece of JavaScript onto the website. And then depending on where the visitor comes from, that JavaScript will switch out the phone number that's on the page. So let's say your phone number is 713-777-7707. Now, when you come from Google Organic Search, then we switch it out to be 713-666-66666. And then when someone then calls that phone number, we're able to say, oh, cool, we got an actual phone call that came from Organic Search.
Which is extremely cool.
It's extremely cool. And the interesting thing, and what we're going to talk about today, is a lot of people think about call tracking when it comes to paid ad campaigns. And when you think about like a unique phone number on a billboard, a unique phone number on that sign in the subway, dynamic tracking when we're doing Google ads, but very not often do we think about it as something that's important to an SEO campaign. So I think it's pretty cool that we're covering that today to kind of shine light on call tracking in general, but then also how it affects SEO.
And it does affect SEO in a big way. It really does.
So how often do you run into clients who rely heavily on phone calls, right, instead of, let's say, forms, but aren't tracking them?
I would say almost every client has some way of not conveniently ignoring it, but isn't aware of how important it is to their strategy. For me, for one of the clients that we're about to talk about, that is almost like an essential to their business because it's a local SEO type play. But for many clients, it's not something that they are implementing in general. I mean, I come from, another world a little bit, and that was not even something that was done, call tracking metrics. I mean, some of these big organizations are missing out on a big opportunity.
So from your perspective, Whether exactly you know or what you think, why do you think so many businesses miss call data when they think about SEO reporting?
It's interesting because traditionally, SEO has been reported across traditional performance metrics, right? So you have the clicks and the impressions, and you have the conversions. And that's what people today still think about when they think of what a good SEO related outcome. And so that's the hindrance, in my opinion, is that they're not thinking of it in a different way. They're used to the traditional way of what reporting looks like. And we know that that is changing.
So I mentioned that, some businesses up to 50% of their business could come through the phone. Do you have a sense of what percentage of conversions or phone calls for most of the clients that you work with?
We're seeing a range between 10% up to
Wow.
80%, which is
Yeah.
huge, which is huge. And we've done a little bit of digging and we've seen that that range, depends also on the industry. It depends on the type of business that they're in, whether it's local play or not. But still, when you think about the amount of conversion opportunity that's offered there, it's pretty high. 80% is a pretty high play.
Yeah. I mean, and then just practically imagine if 80% of your conversions are coming from a metric that you're not even tracking, what kinds of
Right.
decisions do teams would then typically get wrong when not having this data?
They would be blindsided, really. They're blindsided because of that. Then, of course, that just cascades into a strategy. They are not developing the strategy in a robust way. So that piece of that huge strategy is missing. There's a huge gap, obviously. And then over time, you can imagine that this lack of reporting is just like a whole conversion opportunity, but it's also a whole content strategy, really. It's like you're missing an entire audience. You're not catering to them in that way.
So I know call tracking here at Optidge, we've been doing for many, many years. You coming into Optidge, it was a relatively new area that we focus on. So what made you so passionate about improving call tracking setups for SEO clients?
Yeah, so this is a really interesting question. I'm glad you asked it because really I came from, like, wow, there's an opportunity. Here's an opportunity. Let's optimize a page. We see a keyword, it's doing well, blah, blah, blah. All of a sudden, you're like, I'm going by a call number and I'm looking at it in a different way. So, a quick example on this is that, when we look at call tracking, we look at it through different sources. And one of the things that really drove my passion button up to the ceiling and beyond was the idea that a person can land on a page, a user, organically and make a phone call. I know it sounds really silly, but it's really an opportunity. And when you see pages that need that love, and all of a sudden they're getting the love and they're getting recognized through a tracking system, then that's a really cool thing to see. Some of these pages were doing well, but they could do better. Enter an optimization strategy. I go in, I do a little bit of, abracadabra here, abracadabra there, optimize here, look at different ways that the LLMs are looking at this page, optimize H2s, optimize the meta data. And then, you're like, okay, then you just move on with your life, with your work. And then you go back and you have this reporting experience and you're looking at it from a different perspective. And then all of a sudden, these pages that you optimized a month or 2 months before, users are landing on, users are making calls from. And then the wheels start turning in your head. And then you're like, well, why are they making a call from this page? And then you look at the page and then you try to walk in their shoes and try to imagine like what brought them. You're trying to walk through that user journey with them. And I really start to walk those shoes with them and try to see, wow, because then I can listen to their audios. And then I can imagine what it is that they were thinking and what were they looking for? What did they need help with? What did that page actually solve for? Where did they get their information? And they're calling from Carolina. Did that local page give them that inspiration, insight, answers, whatever? And I'm just trying to see, how does that website cater to that micro moment? And that is a cool thing because when I see more multi-organic searches coming through, tracking sources coming through, all of a sudden I'm like, yeah. And that gets me all fired up because that is like gold for me.
It is. It's so powerful, and it's so cool that you're looking at it that way, right? Because so often we want to know, right? Like a lot of people run UX software, so they track people that come to the page where they click. And this is like so much deeper than that, because by listening to that phone call, you actually can hear what their problem was, and was that solved on the page or not? Was it missing? How informed are they on the call?
Right.
How much more education do they
Right.
need? Wow, that is
Right.
so cool.
And I will just add that I'm a very human-centered SEO person. I know that this is very technical and very data-driven, but when I see a low conversion, my head is not saying, "How do I get this page to convert?" or "Why are the conversions on this site low to begin with?" I'm looking at it, I can't solve for all the conversion problems all at once because that's unrealistic. But when I do see a person land and that page starts to move the needle from 1 to 3 to 5, then as Kevin O'Leary says from Shark Tank, then it's enough for me to wet my beak in the morning, like he's a little bit different coming from the money side of things. But I'm like getting really fired up because then I'm like, something I'm doing is actually working. How are they finding us? How are they finding us? And then we can have this conversion conversation because it's too early to start pushing them into a funnel where you don't even know they don't even know if the page even exists and starts to exist, and they're finding it by whatever question they're putting into any AI tool, any AI platform. And that's where I think the gold is, because then you're like, well, how can I move the needle even further? Like where now that they've landed on the page and they made the phone call, what can I do to enrich that experience? And listening to actually those phone calls is really powerful, because a lot of the work that I do is I'm just on the website, I'm thinking about a keyword. It's very lonely to some degree. Lonely. It's not isolating in terms of lonely, but it's lonely because you're not like walking in those shoes. This time you get to hear an actual person and you get to hear them, and that brings a lot of authenticity to the moment.
All right, now we're going to move into more of the technical aspects of how call tracking actually works. So I mentioned before that you put a
Yeah.
piece of code and that the phone numbers switch. So what actually that's called is dynamic number insertion. Basically, once again, this is when website phone numbers are dynamically replaced with source-specific numbers. So the system is able to detect, did someone come directly from organic search? Did someone come to the website directly through their web browser? Did they come through clicking on a Facebook post? Did they click on our Google business profile and then come to the website? So a user clicking on a typical Google result and coming will see one phone number. Then a user clicking from a Google business profile may see another phone number. And the way that DNI knows what to do is because when someone comes from a different website, there's two things. Either in the browser itself can see who the referrer is, but then also you can set up rules based off of the URL, and there's different ways to set it up. Now, if you have a lot of traffic, it's not enough just to have one phone number per source. What is recommended is that for every 20 visits that you get from a certain source, ideally you should have one phone number. So that means that if you're getting 100 visits from a certain source, imagine if you're getting 100 organic visits per day, then really you would need 5 phone numbers. And the reason that you need that is because the more phone numbers you have, the better the algorithm works to associate the person who came to the website and the phone call that was made. Because the idea is that we can't know exactly a person comes to the site and then they make a phone call. It may be difficult to say exactly that this phone call happened connected to this visitor. When you have a little bit of visits, then that's easy. But the more you have, you need to switch out that phone number more often so that you can tie it. And usually this tying of the phone call to the visitor, the match rate is anywhere from 95% to 100% most of the time, as long as you have enough phone numbers. So that's really like the technical side of things. The biggest misconception that clients have about using dynamic numbers is they're worried about using numbers that aren't their main number. And that's because they feel like someone might take that phone number, stick it into their phone book, stick it into their phone, and let's say they don't use that phone number anymore, they're going to dial and they're not going to be there. But honestly, that doesn't really happen. If a phone number doesn't work, people can easily go back to Google and to search for that number. and can find the number. And the pros totally outweigh the cons, because when we're able to track where did people come from and what actually caused those phone calls, then we can make better decisions on where to spend our marketing dollars. And that's really important. So yes, there might be the one or two who take a phone number, they stick it into their phone book, and we decide 2 years later to then take that phone number and not use it anymore. And then when that person 2 years later is trying to call, he gets an unanswered. But the chance of that happening is usually very, very low. Most probably be like, hey, maybe their phone number changed, go back to Google, find the right number, and it shouldn't be a problem. Are you looking for a career that offers flexibility, strong earning potential, and work that you actually enjoy? If you're curious about human behavior, comfortable with technology, and love working with words or creative problem solving, digital marketing might be a perfect fit. And here's the best part. You don't need to spend 4 years in college, rack up debt, or settle for low-paying work to get there. Odeo Academy helps intelligent creative individuals transition into digital marketing with a professional, comprehensive training program you can complete at home without sacrificing your values or your lifestyle. Visit odeoacademy.com/podcast and use code MENTOR at checkout to get $250 off the Digital Fundamentals Career Course launching soon. Classes are filling fast, with the next cohort starting on April 26th, so don't wait. Again, that's odeoacademy.com/podcast and use code MENTOR to claim $250 off now. All right, so that covers the technical side. Let's now go marrying the technical together with organic. Dorit, can you walk us through the 3 main ways that calls can happen from Google?
Yeah, sure. So the first way is they land on the website through an organic search and they make a phone call from the page that they landed on. The second way is that they're in a local area and they Google the site or, provider near me, ABA provider near me. They land on the listing and then they visit the website through the listing and then they make a phone call. And then the third way is that they go through the first part of Googling, and then they make the phone call from the listing without having to visit the website.
Wow. So most people think of like organic search just being, okay, I go to Google, type it in, and then go ahead, then I go to the website. But it looks like it's more than that, right? Because especially in the local market,
Yeah.
you have the interaction of the Google business profile, and then people can call from that or click on that to go to the website. So there are different ways that things can happen. So which of those paths do you think clients overlook the most?
Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, I would have to say all three because it's all part of the same umbrella. From where I sit, I think they overlook the actual Google business listing that they're.
Right. So why is it so important to separate pure organic calls from calls that originate from the Google business profile?
Because it really can have an impact in the actual optimization strategy and how you're optimizing for both differently and distinctly.
Yeah. So especially for local businesses where for them, often in the Google search results, when people are searching for them, because like they say near me, or I need someone in Houston or in Pittsburgh, that map pops
Right.
up.
Right.
So making sure that they show up at that map is really important. And therefore we have to see like, where are these calls coming from? Where are these conversions coming from? Is it from the map? Is it from people coming from the website? If it's all lumped into one, it's really hard to be able to know. It's like a doc. It's
Right.
like if I don't do an MRI or a CT scan and the person just says, I'm not feeling well, right? So we don't know, okay, well, which part of the body? Where do we have to actually go in and fix it?
Right.
So when setting up call tracking metrics, sometimes you set it up based off of the URL. And in order for it to work properly, we have a rule, kind of like if in the URL it says GMB, then this is called the GMB source, and this phone number should show up. So I know that there was an issue where a UTM parameter, the URL was messed up. Can you talk a little bit about what happened there and why does it matter?
Yes. So if I can remember, that was a little bit of time ago. It seems like years ago. But really, it was just a matter of fixing the UTM parameter so that they would be distinct and they wouldn't be blended in terms of the same tracking sources and the same traffic. And that way, we were able to report on them distinctly. So it had that cascade effect. Once we were able to solve for that, we were able to track it better.
So now that you have telephone tracking for this client, what changed in the data? What have you seen? What have you learned?
Yeah. So it's just been a few months, really. Optimally, it would be great to get a year's worth of data, 6 months, and start to see real improvement. We've seen there's obviously other issues that we can look at, like website UX issues, UI issues, and that's something that we're also looking at, which can impact and affect conversions. But I am seeing that the trade-off, the ROI of investing in improving a page from an organic SEO, local SEO play, is having a favorable effect over time on some of the multi-organic channels that are coming in. So a page started with 2 visits, suddenly now is getting 10, which is really cool to see. Really, really cool. I remember the early days when it was 0 and then it was 1. I mean, it may seem that those numbers are small, but it means that the numbers, even if it's a small number at the start, those are engaged people. The way I see it, they're engaged, they're learning about it, and it's just a matter of time that there will be more and more to come. So that was a cool thing to note. So I was mentioning about what makes a qualified lead in terms of time versus calls. So in this case, the cutoff for our qualified leads was 45 seconds and up, and therefore we could really gauge to see, what kind of information exchange and what the pain points were, and any content opportunities that we could take from these calls.
That's really cool. Do you have an example of like a topic or an article that you have added to your
Yeah,
list that
quite a few actually. So somebody was calling from North Carolina, and they were landing on a topic that is one of the highest performing articles called hand flapping. It's symptomatic to autism, and one of those articles spoke to that. So the person who landed on this through organic channels landed on this page, on this article, and then made the phone call. So there was made the phone call from that page. And then one of the things that caller was asking about was, how does the provider, if I, start with, services, how will that help with my son who is at certain age? So does the symptom, can I get services to help with this age? So first of all, that was number one. That's one of the important articles that we also have is, there's certain ages for autism, and that is an important service information. And then the second thing was, how soon can I get services? But then also, is this something that they can help me with? And then he mentioned hand flapping, finger flicking. And I was just like, wow, how cool is that? Because that's exactly, and I don't even know if he knew that we had those articles, the other articles that he was mentioning. And I was just like, wow, that's so cool. Sometimes they don't have all the, top performing organic search terms that they're speaking to, but they're definitely very curious to get services started.
Yeah, that's so powerful because often, especially now in the year 2026, focusing on articles that are a little bit more higher up in the funnel, people are more research based. It's really cool that you have an example here of someone came to the site because of more of a like research based
Yeah.
query, but then actually made a phone call and mentioned that
Yeah.
information. What I think is also cool, and I don't know if you've done this, is the other topics that he mentioned, making sure that like in that hand flapping article, having the linking out to those other articles, make it really easily available because potentially more people who are coming there are going through the same issues.
Yeah. I mean, the list goes on.
Totally.
There's just a bunch of them who are in the early stages of figuring out whether they need the services. So they're asking that. And it just really well rounds the experience, because this is a very personal experience. A parent who's struggling and doesn't know whether or not their son or daughter their child needs this kind of service, or a parent who's in it and is asking questions. I mean, you suddenly get such a human perspective that really well rounds the entire package almost. And it's a really validating thing. I don't have a client that comes close to this kind of experience.
So let's kind of wrap up with lessons learned. What's the biggest lesson you've learned from setting up call tracking across different clients?
Each one is its own strategy. Each one requires its own, call tracking, its own metric, and therefore it can lead to an opportunity, right? But it's hard to know that unless you don't know where those calls are coming from. That's the biggest nugget that I got, is how to make sure that each channel is optimized or how to track them properly and so forth.
What would you do differently if you were training a brand new SEO in call tracking?
Making sure that they know the difference between all three of those tracking channels. Because sometimes I'm like, okay, did I say that right? That would be the first. And I think also just helping them understand that this is another important way to look at SEO from, a strategy and from implementation. I think, a lot of practitioners are early in their careers and they're maybe even mid, they too are, used to doing it the performance metric way, the same impressions, the clicks. I mean, I have a lot of colleagues who don't use call tracking metrics. It's just like, I don't know, what's that? Not for a lack of want. It's just some of them are using it, some of them are not. And I think it's a great thing to be exposed to it early on, to know that this is another place to put your energies and your strategy and your work.
And how important are regular audits? Making sure that everything's set up, you have enough phone numbers, nothing's like falling through the cracks.
I would say a quarter. I think we haven't gotten to that point where we've done a full audit yet, but I think it would make sense to wait until you had enough data and you've gotten to know a little bit more about the client to do a full audit.
One last thing that I would want to add is with multi-location companies, and they've got multiple phone numbers, like let's say they've got one phone number for Georgia, one for North Carolina, you are able to purchase different phone numbers for different locations. So even if there's more than one phone number on the page, but you can say that, okay, for the Georgia phone numbers, when they're coming from Google Organic, there should be a Georgian number that shows up. So a number that has a Georgia area code. For the North Carolina one, a North Carolina phone number should show up with a North Carolina area code. So you can further go and customize the phone numbers that you set up so that they match the location as well. And often that's better than just having like a bunch of 800 numbers or 888 numbers in order to still keep that local feel.
Would you feel like that also adds to credibility? There would be some kind of credibility to it, or would that not play into that?
I think when we're dealing with local businesses, naturally, when you have like a nationwide company that has an 800 number, it's very different than, a local number that I can call. I think from a
psychologically it plays out.
Psychologically plays out that this is more of a homegrown company. They've got a local presence, and I want to work with them. They're not just like this big company that's trying to take over. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, I agree with you.
Any final thoughts that you want to share today?
Keep working on the organic side. I find it continually a cool thing. I really enjoy looking at the organic opportunities that come month over month. I actually look forward to them. That's the first thing that I do. Not to relate to the other two channels, but I enjoy seeing, because a lot more calls come in through the Google business listings and less so on the organic. And I really, really see that as an important channel as well. So it needs love.
Well, thank you so much, Dorit, for joining me today. You can't make great SEO decisions without seeing the full picture. And I think you were the perfect person to illustrate this story for us.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, it's a beautiful story.
This is just one of the many ways we hope to lean into learning data-driven decision-making and transparent marketing practices this year on the podcast. If you enjoyed today's conversation, there's a lot more of this coming your way through 2026. Thanks for joining this Office Hours episode of the Digital Marketing Mentor. We'll see you next time. Thank you for listening to the Digital Marketing Mentor podcast. Be sure to check us out online at thedmmentor.com and at the DM Mentor on Instagram. And don't forget to subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen to your podcasts for more marketing mentor magic. See you next time.